Hello, greetings, and welcome back to the Soul Producers. I am Griffin Gaming RPG, and it is the month of June, and I am here with my two compadres, my brothers from other mothers, and my co-producers, fastcart FC and SeriousFun. Gentlemen, how are you?
Yeah,
I'm
the
doing well, thank you.
salutations.
At the same time.
Yeah, you said my name first. I
Perfect
thought I was going to
timing.
go first.
I know. Usually I take a little break and do the separate introductions, but I didn't think you guys are going to be right exactly at the same moment. But
Hey,
it's good
that's
to
our
be
timing.
here. Yeah, it is. It is. We're all coordinated here. It's been a busy day for us. Today we did a virtual international bar citizen with several people from the community, and we had a good time. FC, did you enjoy the time with the crew we had today?
Oh yeah, it's very enjoyable. Got to see some people I haven't seen in a while. Yeah, yeah, it's been a while since we've done one of those, so I enjoyed myself, even though I was busy the whole time. Well, not the whole time, but most of the time.
Yeah, you're working. Yeah, yeah. It is as always when we do these things. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that takes place, and appreciate you doing what you did today, keeping track of everything. Serious, how about you? I know you didn't think you were going to be there, but you were able to be there for the whole thing today.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling great, but when we started talking about that ugly missed Star Lancer attack, that woke me up, and I was able to let loose. But no, it
That
was
was the
good to
best
see the
moment.
community. It was good to see the community come out, and
Uh,
I enjoyed connecting with everybody.
that was so unexpected when you said that. It was so funny. I just didn't expect it. It was hilarious. But anyway, we had a great time, and special thanks to all the folks who came and hung out with us today on a Saturday afternoon. Um, this week, we've been talking about this topic off and on, just in pieces. The idea of time spent in Star Citizen, the time sink. And so we want to talk with you guys a little bit about it and give you our thoughts. Um, it's very difficult sometimes, and it's natural for us as human beings to want to label something, to put a label on something. And what is Star Citizen? Is it an MMORPG? Is it for a game for solo? Is it PvP? Is it all these different titles? And that's because that's how we do things with gaming, right? We buy games. We hear if it's an SRPG. We kind of know. It gives us an idea of what it is we're going to play. But Cloud Imperium has, as of last year at CitizenCon, Richard Trier made it very clear that they're trying to develop a game that has a little bit of all those elements to it. And that's kind of a foreign monster. A lot of times people say it, but being able to come into a universe like Star Citizen by myself and find things to do and feel rewarded, but also to be able to get with my friends and do something and feel rewarded. And I'm talking about equal levels of reward, not like, you only get so much reward over here, but if you do this, you may get a different level of reward. I mean, I think that can happen because of a group experience, but being able to feel like my stepping into that universe, I can find some satisfaction. One of the areas that's been expressed of dissatisfaction is the idea of how much time it takes to do things in Star Citizen. Fast Card, I'm gonna come to you first on this one. Um, you've been around a good amount of time, and you've seen how time has gotten tweaked in some ways with different things in the game. But you've played other games too. How do you feel in relation to when you play the game? Do you come with the expectation of like, okay, I'm gonna have to put in a good X number of time, or do you feel like if I just get in for 20 minutes, that's enough? How do you approach time when it comes to Star Citizen?
I'm just Star Citizen specifically. I try to set. I mean, I know I'm going to set aside this amount of time in order to perform a certain activity. What I'm doing compared to other games, like if I play in one of my mobile games, I know I can just come and go as I please. So that's like
Mm-hmm.
10, 15, 20 or an hour, depending on what game I'm playing. Particularly, typically for RPGs, when I'm buying a new game, I,
Mm-hmm.
I try to research with the time commitment, with the time to completion for that game, because I want to
Mm-hmm.
know, like, if it's a 40, if it's a $60 game, but you're only getting 10 hours of game time out of it. I wait for the game to go on sale. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's a $100 game, I know I'm getting a pretty good deal. Like for like say something like Baldur's Gate, for instance. But for Star Citizen specifically, you can't really equate it that way. So I do have a bunch of ships, but I don't equate the money that I put into it versus the time that it goes into it. Because for one thing, we're still waiting for 1.0 to come out,
Mm-hmm.
and the other thing is I'm enjoying the community that I play with
Mm-hmm.
versus the amount of game time that I put into it at the moment.
But what's your, like, when you do come into the game, are you expecting to get something done within a certain amount of time, or do you approach it as whatever amount of time it takes for me to do it, I'll put that time in? How do you approach spending time in the game?
I'll do whatever amount of time it takes. I'll do it because especially like typically if I go in for IAE,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to go in, explore stuff. I don't have any kind of set time or anything like that because I always set my location at the IAE location, so I don't have to travel, or Invictus for instance. So I don't have to worry about that. I just
Mm-hmm.
pop in, go to the venue, and look around until I'm satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something that we do on like Toll Station, then I say, okay, this is at least going to be 3 to 4 hours. But I know it can go longer
Mm-hmm.
depending on what we're doing.
Okay. Okay. Serious, how about you? How do you approach time when you come into, Star Citizen, playing Star Citizen?
Yeah, I mean, it's different for this game than it is for most games for me. Um, when and that means that, when I sit down to play a soccer simulation, I sit down, I know it's going to be 15 minutes to play 90 minutes. I'm in, I'm out, play the game, I'm done.
Mm.
When I sit down with Star Citizen, things take as long as they take, right? And I'm coming to not play but live, right? And so because I'm there to live, I'm doing activities of daily living, right? And my ADLs in game take as long as they take, right? And so sometimes I come in and I get 15 things done, and sometimes I come in and I get 2 things done, and sometimes I come in and I don't even get anything done, right? Depending on how the game wants that, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm looking for the pace in Star Citizen to be close to the pace of life, right?
Mm.
Because I'm coming to live in the game. I'm not coming to be done with the game already. So
Do you think that that's a point of contention, though? Because there are people who approach games, we all bring our game experiences to a game, right? And I've heard people say, oh, Star Citizen is going to be a life simulator. Some people say it's a flight simulator, it's a space combat game. What happens when you have people with all these different desires or feelings of what they want to see? Like personally, I'm personally looking for the second life, daily life experience in the game. But I know that there are players who aren't looking for that. It's almost like saying I'm a role player, but I know there are people out there who don't role play. They're not. They don't. I'm the guy who when I wake up, I open my thing up and I put on some casual pants and I find the cool looking boots and I put on some glasses and all this other stuff, right? And as I'm in the elevator, there's the guy next to me with 2 rifles, a huge backpack, a heavy armor, and he never takes it off, right? He's always in it, right? 2 different forms of gameplay in the same space. For me, when I get to my hangar, that's when I take off the casual clothes, I put on the armor, pick my rifle, blah, 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 right? That's time spent. And for some people, they would see that time as being wasteful, like they're not going to go through all of that. So how do you, I don't want to be dismissive of that person that wears their armor all the time, right? For me, I look at them and it's like, dude, don't you get hot in that thing? That's how that's how I feel about it, right? I like when I see people change up and put on regular clothes, but that's the gameplay I would like to see. But it's not necessarily the gameplay that will have to be in the game. So that person who thinks that Griff is wasting time in Kasaba and, you know, putting on his clothes, he could have been on the ship and left. How do we look at what's wasted time? You know what I'm saying? What is wasted time? Because that person may say that was wasted time for me, but I could look at them and say, dude, you're wasting your time not doing what I'm doing, right? You know, you're so worried about this, that, and the other, you're missing the experience. It's very easy for both sides to look at the other one and say, hey, you're the idiot. You know what I mean? And I know we're going to talk about this in greater detail in a few minutes, but I'm just trying to sort through this a little bit because I understand why people say certain things, but I also feel like some people say certain things because they haven't really had the true experience that we think CIG is going toward. But I could be wrong about that. So I don't know.
Fastcart, do you want to go first?
I know I gave y'all a
my answer is extended. Okay. So I think everybody agrees that one of the incredible features in Star Citizen is the ships. And part of the reason people agree that the ships are an incredible feature in Star Citizen is because they're incredibly detailed, right? But folks who just want to jump in their ship and pew pew, or just want to jump in their ship and whatever, sometimes don't realize that the rest of the world is detailed too, right? I was playing the demo of Jump Ship the other day, and I had to stop playing because the assets around me were not of sufficient quality, having now played Star Citizen, right? So just the rocks in Star Citizen, just the grass in Star Citizen is detailed, right? And so the question then becomes why? Why is that detailed, right? Why does Kasaba exist? If the game, quote unquote, is really to just always have your armor on and go run around and do armor stuff, right? But then you have Kasaba and you have the shoes in detail, right? You have the clothing in detail, right? You have these stores laid out in detail, right? You have these space stations in detail. You have these landing zones in detail, right? Well, you know, if you've played Battlefield, there's a lot of stuff that seems in detail, but really is just background. And that's what I think a lot of these gamers are used to, right? Where it's like, oh, there's a landscape off, it looks very nice, but I can't really go there. There's a landscape and it's really seems detailed in its layout, but there's nothing for me to do there, right? And what Star Citizen is asking these folks over and over and over again is to reimagine that, because actually you can go there in Star Citizen. So when you see a Vista on Microtech, you can go to that Vista. There's a gameplay moment, Griff, that you and I had, and there's some other folks there as well, but I remember you and I being present, and it was to seek out the Maroc bird for the first time. And we landed in the savannas on Microtech, and we got out, and it was the first time that we had heard wildlife sounds while looking for this bird. And you could hear the wind and the grass was rustling. And that's gameplay in a game that you're inhabiting, right? It's not gameplay if the goal is to get your armor on and go shoot somebody, right? If that's all it is, then that is a waste of time. But the question then becomes, why do you think CIG built all this other stuff?
Is it a waste of time? Let me ask you a question while you're there. Is it a waste of time, or is it a waste of opportunity? Or what I'm trying to say is,
where you stand on that depends on where you sit. Right?
Yeah, I'm saying, but have we minimized, not we, because I want to be really careful about this. Has the industry made it so that we've minimized gameplay, that it is just only a few things now, that gamers no longer are willing to do the extra to explore, because in their minds, that's wasted time doing that? You know what am I making any sense? Like, we think that accomplishment we believe that accomplishment means getting something done quickly. I finished the game, I sped run it, and I did it in 20 hours. right? Even though it took 7 years to make the game, I did it in 20 hours. And there's some reward, some psychological reward to it. Where back in the day, y'all, the dinosaurs coming out now, y'all. Back in the day, it used to be, I spent 2,000 hours and I explored every freaking corner. That's when you bragged. You didn't brag.
I remember those.
When you spent 30 hours or 25 hours and you finished the game. So that's what I mean. Was it missed opportunities, a wasted opportunity? That's what I meant. You know, yeah, I still was able to get my thing and deliver the box or shoot the person or do whatever. But there was so many other things that I skirted over. You know what I mean? In the process. I don't know.
I think that's a component of what's happening here, right? Which is, you know, we were raised. I mean, I'm going to bring my dinosaur out alongside your dinosaur. It's going to get to be Jurassic Park in a minute, but
I'm hearing the Jurassic Park music in my head now. Go ahead.
When the first real F-16 simulator dropped, Falcon 4.0, the manual that accompanied that simulation was thicker than most of my college textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a real 3-ring binder, and it was hundreds of pages long. You can look it up now. Just for those of you watching the show, just pause this and then Google Falcon 4.0 manual.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll laugh if you didn't grow up with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why was that? Well, because they were making an experience where all the details mattered. It was like flying a real F-16.
Yeah. And
so you had to do all the things and know all the buttons and do all the stuff, especially if you had the game set on fully realistic, right? And so that's what I was raised with, right? Elite Dangerous in 1986 came with a manual, and it came with a novella that you had to read, right? So there was book homework, there was a manual, there was a map you had to put up on the wall, right? There was all kinds of accoutrement that went with this stuff to make the game. Same thing with the Ultima series, the Avatar series, right? Yes. You know, and so
just real quick, you say you put the map on the wall because you didn't have 2 monitors back then. You only had 1 monitor that was just for playing the game. You had to put a map on the wall because that's where you had to put the information at the time.
Yeah, or you had one of those keyboard overlays. Remember that?
Yeah.
That would be customized, and it would lay over your keyboard, and it would tell you what each key did, things like that. And you know, I'm not saying that everything was better back in the day. What I'm saying is that was a certain type of cultural formation when it came to gaming. That, you know, Chris Roberts is our age. Right. So the real answer to your question is, you know, what Star Citizen is going to be whatever Chris Roberts wants it to be. Right. Yeah. My guess is that he probably wants facets of the game that allow people to get in and get out. Right. Whether it's Arena Commander or whether it's components in the persistent universe that are easy access. Right. That's why you can set your spawn over at Checkmate or Obituary and get into those contested zones. Right. And, you know, get in and out, right? And do your thing. You can be very quickly into that pew pew, right? But I also think that all of the detail is to not miss a trick around this other idea of what would it be like to inhabit this world 930 years from now, right? And that's why on occasion, and I know you do this too, I walk from my hab, right? Because I want to hear, oh, that's Jared's voice on the news with the Imperator talking about the regen crisis. What's happening, right? And in fact, I'm hoping over the long term that that's really rewarded, right? Yeah. That running through means you miss stuff, and as a result, you don't end up in certain places because there's a strength to slowing down and seeing the whole game and appreciating all the work, right? So
Elite Dangerous added that as one of the cool things in Odyssey when you went to a space station, if you went to the communal area, if you hung around long enough, people would be talking and you'd get a hint about something that was going on. It might have been a mission or something, but you had to stick around a little bit, right? Which was, if you just ran through and went and bought your stuff and ran out, you wouldn't hear any of it, you know? What were you going to say, FC? I'm sorry.
So speaking of dinosaurs, I'm going to bring up my Triceratops that I like to ride on. So I'll be right there with you. In my opinion, the game industry, I had to write this down because I didn't want to lose my thought. The game industry currently tries to make as much money as quickly as possible. And many, like I don't want to say most of the time, but a lot of the time. And sometimes the best way to do that is to cut corners or copy and paste or what have you. And a lot of gamers have gotten used to that being the cadence that the gaming industry is currently in or has been in for the past maybe decade or so. That's not where Star Citizen or Squadron 42 is at. For example, there's an author who played Elite Dangerous named Drew Wager. Doing the whole Odyssey thing, he started playing Star Citizen. On one of his first streams on Twitch stream, he came in and he landed at, I want to say, New Babbage, I think. And you know that tunnel in between the two places where you can see the backdrop and see everything past and everything? Drew Wager thought that was just a backdrop. And his chat was telling him, no, you can go there. That's an actual location. So it's hard for some people to grasp, not having played Star Citizen before, that's the scope and scale of what this game is. Because a lot of people are not used to that. They see that and they say, oh, that's just a backdrop to make it look pretty. So for someone who just came in, who's new, it can be difficult to grasp. And I think that's, I don't want to say part of the problem, but maybe part of the symptoms of people who are saying why this game takes too much time. Because if I had to go there, you explore that mountain or explore the planet or whatever, that's going to take a lot of time. And that's something not many people are used to this current day.
Okay. Well, seriously,
and they may not want to do, right? They just may not want to do that, right? They may go, listen, yeah, I hear all y'all dinosaurs over there talking. I got a lot of games I want to play. Star Citizen is just one of them, and I want to be in and out. Yeah. And so I do think there's a large contingent that thinks that way. And I do think that CIG has to have some gameplay, even in the persistent universe. I don't think you could just shuffle them off to Arena Commander, right? Although I think Arena Commander should be viable, right, for this. And elements of theaters of war ought to be in that and this, that, and the other. But I do think some pieces of the persistent universe are going to have to be available to that mindset. But you know, my hope and prayer is that doing that doesn't sacrifice on the altar the idea of being what it would be like to really live in this world, right? Yeah. So
well, let's take a look. You presented a question earlier that you did a little research on using good old ChatGPT. Maybe you can kind of lead into that, and then we'll kind of share that information with everybody and talk about it.
Yeah, I was, you know, going back and forth with my AI about this idea of respecting time, right? And given what Star Citizen is, what do we think that really means, right? Does it if people are talking about the design needs to be fun, yeah, I agree with that. And in fact, that's what Jared often comes back to, right? Is this idea of, is it fun, right? Okay. And if it's not fun, then it probably needs to be revisited, right? There's rule of cool. Is it enjoyable? Right? They take realism to a certain level, then back it off to where it's fun. And ChatGPT said, you're tapping into something vital here, and it deserves to be said plainly. Star Citizen isn't meant to be consumed, completed, or conquered. It's meant to be inhabited. And I've at this point, I felt like ChatGPT knew me in my soul. I just started leaning in to whatever it could have then said, now open up your wallet and give me $5. And I would have done it. right? Because that sentence to me, those sentences to me are everything. It isn't meant to be consumed or completed. This is not a game you beat, right? It's a world you live in. This is not a game you beat. It is a world you live in, right? And those that, for example, have lived in the world of World of Warcraft, for example, they get that, right? People go there to live. They go there and get married, right? They go there and hang out with friends, right? They go there in social contexts and have conversations. That, I think, is what Star Citizen is more than it is a game you beat. And it said the mindset that you're pushing back against, why can't I do everything now, is rooted in a modern gaming culture conditioned by instant gratification, fast unlocks, and algorithmically optimized dopamine loops. And I thought that was insightful as well, right? Which is, to Fastcart's point, these companies are not just thinking we want to make as much money as we can as fast as we can. They are hyper organized to do so, right? They understand, they hire psychologists, they understand the dopamine loop, and are thinking about methodologies all the time to optimize that, right? When I dialogued with in another context, in another life, I dialogued with some of the top marketing and ad agencies in the world, and they talked about marketing is no longer offering people a product, right? Marketing is generating a feeling of satisfaction in people that they are going about the process of purchasing, having that peak in the act of purchasing, and having them post-purchase being immediately dissatisfied with no longer being in that process, so that they get back into the process. It actually has nothing to do with the product anymore at all. It has to do with a feeling. And that is this algorithmically optimized dopamine loop. That's what that means. It says, but Star Citizen, for all its current flaws and growing pains, and we all know it has those, dares to do something different. It asks for patience, presence, and respect, but not just of your time, but of time itself, right? That's getting at this idea of, as Fastcart said earlier, we come in and we know that certain things are just going to take time, right? And so we go to do the thing we're going to do, and it takes the time that it takes. The cry of respect my time often actually means maximize my efficiency and eliminate my uncertainty, right? I want to be efficient in the game, right? People don't want to know that there's a loop that's more efficient that they haven't discovered or are using yet, right? So people are always thinking in every context, what's the meta, right? What's the meta for combat on the ground? What's the meta for combat in ships? What's the meta for mining? What's the meta for, and that's because they're trying to do it as fast as they can. Well, if you ask them why, sometimes they don't even know why, right? And that's today's gaming culture. They just know that that's valuing their time, is to do it as fast as possible. Well, in a game that's built for you to live in it, it's almost like if you were at home and your daughter, your son, or your brother, your sister was running by you back and forth, and you're relaxed on the couch, but they're sprinting back and forth. And you're going, what are you doing? And they're going, I'm trying to get life done as fast as possible. Right? And you're going, are you going to enjoy it? Are you here to live it? They're like, no, I'm not worried about all that. I'm just trying to get it done as fast as possible. Right? You would find that something to challenge and maybe change. Right? And it says, in fact, the deepest satisfaction comes not from ease, but from earned experiences, the unplanned rescue, the long haul trip that doesn't go
you
as
skip something.
expected.
You skip something. After uncertainty, pick up from after uncertainty.
Oh, but real play, meaningful play, often thrives in friction, right? Or contestation, surprise, and effort. Meaningful play often thrives in friction, surprise, and effort. In fact, the deepest satisfaction comes not from ease, but from earned experiences. The unplanned rescue, the long haul trip that doesn't go as expected, the chance meeting with another player who changes your path. And all three of those things even though Chat GPT and I never talked about it, but we have had those experiences just in Soul Citizen, in a Soul Citizens context. That stuff has happened, right? And those are the memorable experiences. And it says, so yes, if a player is frustrated that they can't do it all in a week or a month, or that systems are in flux or still evolving, then maybe they're playing the wrong game, right? And that's a little harsh, right? I would say maybe they want to rethink what this game is, right? That they've got 100 games that do that for them. Maybe there's room for one game that does it a little bit differently. But for those who want to build a future, not just consume one, Star Citizen is uniquely worth it, because in the end, respecting your playtime, quote unquote, should mean giving you something worth your time, not shrinking the game and limiting the game to fit your schedule.
So let me ask you a question. Go ahead, fastcart.
Maybe you missed. Maybe they could go play something that is done. I think you skipped that part, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they should go play something that is done. Right.
Let me backtrack something here, though. And I think that the problem with this is that it does not incorporate the idea completely. When you read this last paragraph, I don't feel that it has added into the fact that the game is not finished. It almost feels like this statement would be, I would agree with this statement 100% if everything was that could be offered to the players was there for them, and then they could choose. But I struggle because there are people who are looking for that extra stuff. Like I said, respecting your playtime should mean give me something worth my time. And if there's not enough stuff given, right, then all they're grabbing are the scraps. They're just grabbing what's there. You know what I mean? Like, we may know that Chris Roberts wants to do 100%, but there's only 30%. And so I'm trying to, vision is one thing, but vision ain't satisfying nothing. I'm trying to find some gameplay, and only 30% of it is here. So I struggle, right? Because I keep hearing.
That's absolutely fair.
I hear, yeah. Right. I'm hearing, not only am I hearing, you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Visually, Star Citizen makes you think there's more there than what is there. Visually, right?
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
Just looking at this sucker, just like you said earlier, the detail
and moving in the landscape, right?
Yeah,
New Babbage.
Right.
You can go there, and then you think, I can go in every building. You can't do that.
Yeah, or
right.
You walk downstairs, you go past your hab, the AI are walking, and you hear this talking, and you get to the tram, and the door doesn't open. All this advanced stuff is happening around me, but the freaking door doesn't open, right? And so I'm saying that also creates a tension, I think, psychologically, that the game kind of almost, it's like when we watch the trailers, you know what I mean? You see those trailers. Man, listen, when I knew that Idris was coming out, right? We were talking around backstage, Idris is coming out. I could care less about Idris. I saw that commercial. I'm like, man, maybe I could find a wallet. Let me see. It looks so good. And I know I don't want to Idris, but there was something about seeing it in action and doing that made me think this, that, and the other. Now, guess what? I go by the Idris and I go on board, and 70% of what's posted on Idris don't work. You see what I'm saying? If that delivery isn't there, then I can feel like it's not, to that last line, giving me something worth my time. So I think, is there the possibility that once the mechanics are there, once the gameplay is there, once the stability is there, once the performance is there, we may get some converts who now do start to see and feel, appreciate, learn, accept the fact that this game is something worth living in, and not just something that's about, let me just go in and get my dopamine hit. You know what I mean? And maybe more willing to explore. Like, if I want to explore, but if my exploration ships don't do nothing except transport me there, but I can't scan, or I can't, you know what I'm saying? I think that can also create a certain difficulty where some people, and I'm not saying this in any negative way, there are some people who accept, like me, all these freaking exploration ships. I accept the fact that my Aquila cannot do anything right now. It is nothing more than a cargo ship. I accept the fact that my 600i Explorer has 2 consoles back there to do absolutely nothing, right? And it's not that I'm happy about it. Believe you me, you know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, I think people do. They see that expectation and they see what it's supposed to be able to do, but then it doesn't, and then you get frustrated, you know, because you wanted to do it, and the game doesn't deliver it, you know. FC?
For me, like I played numerous MMOs throughout my life. Like Final Fantasy 11, not 14, 11. I played for like 4 years. EVE Online, I played for like 4 years. Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO, I played for 3 or 4 years. It's a pattern for me. But you know, I'm still waiting for the gameplay that I would enjoy to come into Star Citizen, because people may or may not know. I'm the combat aspect or let me put it this way: the FPS or the ground combat aspect of Star Citizen doesn't really appeal to me. I really love the base combat. That's my jam. But the combat aspect, not so much. But I'm looking for something like in my Star Wars: The Old Republic guild. I was known as the grinding beast because I would be the one who could like donate a lot of credits into the guild bank for the guild to buy stuff, and you know that's me, because I like to play the economy game in that game, and that's just how I am. So I'm looking forward to that coming into Star Citizen, but I'm hoping that I won't get too hooked on it when it does come to Star Citizen before 1.0, because I want to I want stuff to count for me personally. 'Cause, I mean, even though I'll be spending time with people, AUEC is not real UEC. So I'm looking for that aspect. But that's me.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to get into with this, is because you've all talked about 3 different ways to understand when somebody says this, right? So when someone says the game needs to respect my authority, right? It needs to respect my time, right? They could mean a lot of different things, right?
Yeah,
They
true.
could mean, to Fastcart's point, they could mean like, I'm ready for things to count. And, sorry. They can mean, as Fastcart saying, I'm ready for things to count, right? And if things don't count, there's a certain diminished experience, right? I'm ready for things to count. Or to your point, Griff, it could mean that, you know, give me things worth doing, right? Make sure that the design is fun and engaging. I think all of that is valid. What I'm worried about is that other person who is like, simplify it, shorten it, make it quicker, make it more like my previous arcadey like experiences. I want CIG, to be frank, to kind of reject that, right? And to not center the game on that. Now, should there be pieces that you can get in and out and do? Yes, but I, for the most part, I'm looking to inhabit this space, not to play and be done with it and on to the next thing, right? And for me, Star Citizen, after all this time, would be a failure if most people got in, played for a year, 6 months, 3 months, did what they thought was everything, and were out, right?
Let me
That
ask you a
would be
question.
a big failure.
Ask you a question. You were a big Elite Dangerous player. What was the amount of time that you knew people sometimes took to travel across from system to system? What was a good length of time? Like if somebody wanted to go from somewhere like to Earth to Sol, because I know it took a lot of time.
Yeah, there's like 3 answers to that. So when the game first came out, very early on, it didn't have what they ended up calling Super Cruise,
right?
And it took too long.
I know, right? I know, I remember.
Then they put Super Cruise in for like premium beta, and for most of the game's history, you could jump, and all your jumps were centered on stars, and then in system you could Super Cruise. And so, you know, I was part of a project in Elite called Distant Worlds, the first Distant Worlds project. And we went from the inhabited worlds around Earth and that area to the far side of the Milky Way galaxy to the furthest known point called Beagle Point.
Oh my God.
And
how long?
That took probably 3.5 weeks of 8 hours, 6 hours a day, just jumping.
Dang.
Just
Okay.
jumping. It was so tedious that the people that did it ended up in a book. We're all in a book for the group that first went out there and went to Beagle Point.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's in a 1-to-1. That's in a 1-to-1 universe, right?
Right.
And I'm sharing
but
that.
since then, I was just gonna say, but since then,
that's right.
They've added something called I can't remember what it's called, but there's an enhanced version of Super Cruise that moves you around the systems even faster because after 10 years, people were still like, come on, man. So
yeah. And I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because for those people who haven't been around for a while, and maybe if you have and you've just forgotten, CIG does tweak our times. For those of you who were around back when we first were at Port Olisar, and that was the only place we had, and we thought it took a long time to get to Grim Hex, or to get to Kovalex, things like that. But I remember when we got Hurston, very first time we went to Hurston in quantum time used to take 12 to 15 minutes in a jump. Now it's like 2 minutes, maybe.
Right.
When we first got the trams used to take 4 minutes, 5 minutes. You had to wait in the station literally for 5 minutes like it was a real train. And guess what? Now they take 1:40, 1:30, something like that. No more than 2 minutes time for a tram to come. Pyro, when we first heard about it, Pyro was 14.5 AU or 14 AU. Now it's 9.5 AU. And so there will be some tweaking. And I'm saying this because there are people who will say, well, what are we going to do when we're traveling across the systems? Like to your point, Sirius, in Elite, that was it. You weren't doing nothing. You couldn't even get out of the seat in Elite. You had to just sit there and take the ride, right? But CIG has talked about other things that you'll be able to do. Some of those things will be repairing equipment. Some of it will be socializing. Some of it will be like on the Idris, you've got the, what do they call the training booths? I forget what they call those things. What did they call those things back in the day?
Simulators.
The simulators are on there so that you can be simulations or having fun, having battles in there while you're on your way somewhere. There are pool tables. There's going to be preparation. There's all these different things. And before you know it, what took 15 minutes or 20 minutes will feel like, oh God, we're almost there. I'm not done yet. There's restacking and reloading of things. There's repair. There's all types of things that could still be happening in the game. Now, I know for some people, that just may not be that type of gameplay that they're interested in. But I think that this thing about rewarding, what becomes rewarding in gameplay, I used this example once before, that if I want to deliver some cargo, as great or wonderful an idea as it is to say, I'm going to go in the game, I'm going to get this cargo, I'm going to travel to this location, and I'm going to sell it. Now, that might work if I'm pulling, 80, 90 SCU of something. But what happens when I have like 700 SCU of something, right? And I don't want to auto load, and I want to load that stuff up. Maybe all I got to do that day was just load my ship up. And that's it. That was it. That's all I got to do today. I don't necessarily feel any lack of accomplishment. I feel like it takes about a day to load this ship up. So I'm just joking around, but it takes a certain amount of time to load the ship up. And if that's all I got to do that day, I may have wanted to do more, but I'm not going to feel like, well, I didn't accomplish what I needed to do. All I feel like is that this gives me something for tomorrow. When I come back, my ship's ready to go and I can go, So to me, some of it is perspective. Now, I know that I do understand that drive. You said it earlier, the dopamine of feeling the reward. But we want to encourage players to find reward in just accomplishing something. It doesn't have to be the final step. But the fact that you just did something and it worked well in the game. Like we went to Hathor yesterday and we all arrived there. 3 ships. 2 ships got blown out of the sky. I was the only guy. Guess what? I came in a freaking Aurora MR, and I was the guy that lived. Okay, the other guys all got blown up. Okay,
that was an attack.
And so and so guess what? Instead of something that should have taken us, because we were there, we should have been on the ground within like 10 minutes. It turned into almost another 40 minutes before we were able. This goes into what you read about earlier about when something organic happens, right? Something unexpected happens, right? So what happens if I was on the clock and I said I got to be somewhere in 30 minutes? And you know what I'm saying? Am I going to get mad and say, "Dag, I got to be somewhere in 30 minutes. These guys got blown up. Now I can't finish doing what I was doing." You know what I'm saying? That could happen.
Well, maybe like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm like, you could get mad, but my guess is that you're going to be getting mad a lot then.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And that's my point. That was a part of gameplay. You know what I mean? That was gameplay. So if gameplay extended my gameplay hours, and this is tough, guys, because we're all going to be in this situation. Sure, there's going to be times when, you know, my family needs to be somewhere and I got to leave. I can't stay. What? Am I going to accelerate the gameplay because of that? You know, or am I going to have to say, I got to log out? You know, guys, good luck. You know, that I wish I could be here.
I mean, you raise a good point about, and this was raised in the virtual bar citizen that we had. How we can log out, group logging out, where we can log out, what logging out means. As that evolves, I think some of this will be mitigated, right?
Possibly,
because if this happens and you say, Fist, I'm going to log out in my Aurora bed, fly my Aurora back to, and you just go, then stuff's happening, and you know you might be okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Or if you take an Idris out and there's 23 beds on the Idris, and everybody that's working a job, like you said, we're all there, and we can all log out. Now, how that's going to work is going to be very interesting, but I do think that we can expect another evolution of bed logging in ways that I think will empower people to play the game the way they want to play it a little bit more too. So
yeah. I know.
Did we read the last two sentences of this thing? I don't think
I
did. I read it pretty.
He read it all the way through. He read it all the way through.
Okay.
What I was going to say is this: I think as the universe gets bigger, CIG will continue to tweak, and you said this earlier, Serious. There's that fine line between reality and pulling it back to where it remains still entertaining and fun. And so, as the universe gets bigger, we may see just those small little tweaks and incremental changes. That instead, and it may be nothing more than instead of the tram being 1 minute and 30 seconds, it's now 1 minute and 15 seconds, right? And it's just enough to make it feel reasonable, right? But not, because like right now, you know how it is when you get in the elevator right now in a station, the door closes and opens up real quick. People freaked out when that first happened. I don't know if you remember that, because people were used to the travel time. And then as soon as it went instantaneous, people were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They felt
that doesn't feel right.
It didn't feel right, because you felt you needed that little feeling of time passing. You know, even if it just felt like you just went down one floor, but that instantaneous thing, people felt it because we were used to seeing time pass a little bit. It seemed crazy, this physicalization of elevators moving and all of this stuff. But when it was removed, it felt weird, you know. So I'm hoping that CIG continues to find that balance, as you mentioned, so that there's a rewarding feeling. Will it get to a point where people start to maybe change their perspective and say this time, and I think it is on CIG to make it feel worthwhile, to your point. It does need to feel worthwhile. Time just can't be passing for the sake of, you know, well, that's the way it really is in real life. No, it has to feel productive. You know, what would I be doing, you know, when time is passing? I wouldn't be just staring watching paint dry. Nobody wants to sit there and watch paint dry. You know what I'm saying? So you do want to find out, well, there's some things that we can do that still feel meaningful. They don't feel grindy, but they do feel meaningful as time passes. And again, we want to encourage people as much as possible. We know there are solo players out there. We know there are lone wolves out there. But you will just be so amazed that when you play with other people and engage with other people, it's like riding in the car. You know what I mean? On a long road trip. When you go by yourself, it feels like forever. But when you got some other people in the car, it's like time passes.
It goes by quick. Yeah.
You know, it goes by quick.
The only other thing I'd extend is, to your point around that change in the hab elevators, right? It's once you have this thing laid out and it sort of feels like, oh, an hour, a minute, a second in the real world is sort of comparable to what's happening in Star Citizen. Once you change it and make it shorter, it's real hard to go back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't imagine that will ever go back to being longer.
No.
Because that will be very hard on the player base. Right. And so CIG needs to really think about changes they make to shorten things.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard to go back to longer. That feels harsher than it should, but it just does for most people most of the time. Right. And so I'd like to fight for the idea of some time, that sort of has some verisimilitude in inhabiting the space, because if everything gets shortened everywhere, then all of a sudden you have this, it becomes arcadey.
Oh yeah.
Right? And then you have a different game. And I'm not sure that it would be right for me. Right. So
no, I agree. I agree. I think that the time
that doesn't,
go ahead, Pastor.
Go ahead.
In my opinion, the more arcadey you make Star Citizen, the less time people will want to spend in the game, because it'll be that flavor of mine. I'm just going to get in, play this game for a bit, then get out and play move on to the next one. If we make it too arcadey, in my opinion, I want to play the game for 10 years, and I'm not the only one who feels this way. But if you make it too arcadey, that'll definitely shorten the lifespan of the amount of time a lot of people will stay in the game.
Because it hammers the sense of the consequential, right? Right. What time does is it makes everything consequential. You're like, oh my God, I spent half an hour doing that. Consequences, right? And so when you make it arcadey, then it's like, well, this isn't really a simulation of life 930 years from now. This is just another game, and I can go play another game too. I'm on my way, right? So
if I want arcade, I got games on my tablet that I can play.
I hear you guys. I think it's just going to be incumbent on CEG to find that balance that's between arcade and simulation. Simulation, because my problem with if we go simulation is if you go simulation with one thing, you got to do it with everything. Because some people want necessarily, for real. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. Are you going to make ships totally Newtonian physics and all the reality in it, right? But then you're going to make mining be something that you can do it in like 30 minutes and you're all done. Are you going to, because for expeditious sake, right? People want to make their money. Like right now, people are talking about shortening the mine. Like right now, if you do the most, what's the word I'm looking for? If you want to refine the most materials, it's a 24-hour process. Okay, they have a process that takes 24 plus hours if you want to get the most out of your raw materials when you want to refine them. Then they have some that last only 2 hours. Then they say they're only 2 hours. The difference is that if you want them in 2 hours, you don't get as much material back. Okay. And you pay more money. If I went away 24 hours, I pay less money, but I get more material back. Okay. So, and I'm saying that makes sense to me. So if you decide to make refining happen very quickly, but you want to make the way ships fly realistic, the world is too goofy at that point to me. I'm saying, if you're going to go sim, go sim. You know what I mean? Don't make these switches on this side go, I got to work hard and figure it out. But over here, I don't got to use my brain at all. That's what I mean by when I say I don't want the game to be that way. Now, that's why I said find the middle, right? Find the place in the middle that gives people who want that realistic thing like SeriousFun is talking about, that they want that serious, that they feel like it's worth investing time in to do. But then also find that place for the person who comes in and they want to have a good gaming experience that's fruitful, but not like all of a sudden I can step in the elevator and it works like a transporter instead of an elevator, right? That's what I'm saying. That if we get the transporter thing, that's fast travel. Don't put that in the game. You know what I mean? Because that to me is going to break.
Then why shifts? Right. Then why shifts?
Exactly. At that point. Right. It's just and that's what I mean by when I say if you're going to go sim, go all the way. Because when you start mixing them, and maybe I'm looking at it from an immersion space fastcart too, that like, not to be funny, it breaks my immersion when people run past me at super fast speeds in this game. It does. Because there's a human pacing that we do. And like I was mentioning this the other day, Mortal Online 2, I play that. That game, your physics and movement are just like real human beings. Just like real human beings. You can run like the speed of a human, and that's it. So if a wolf is coming after you, you ain't gonna outrun it. Eventually, it's gonna catch up with you. You know what I'm saying? But if I can do all this running and jumping, like like Call of Duty type stuff, and hopping and you shooting at me, and I'm hopping around like this and stuff, that just breaks immersion for me. It breaks immersion for me in a big way. For
me, it when I'm wearing a backpack. And I could put all this stuff in my backpack and still walking around. I'm like, how strong is my character? I wish I could be this strong in real life.
And here's the cool part about that. For loot bandits, for people who love looting, they love it. And I can understand why they love it,
I can understand it, yeah.
But that big backpack, 2, 3, 4 rifles, all this other stuff and whatnot. And I'm like,
how strong is my character?
It's nice. It's nice. I did it last night. I loaded up. I had 4 rifles in the back of my backpack. Right. When I was in it, it was. But there is that part of me that the problem with that is that, and I know this is going to sound. Some people aren't going to like this. In reality, in real life, you just can't do everything. You can't do it all. If it was real life, I would have to choose. What can I take with me? And there's going to be something I got to leave behind. I did that last night. There was a really cool rifle. And I was like, man, I hate to have to leave this thing here. But I had to make that decision and say, I can't take it. Or I have to ask somebody else, do you have space? Maybe they could take it. That's what should happen. Not the fact that I've got enough stuff on me that no matter what I run into, I can put it in here and take it with me. And I know some people like that. I'm a loot goblin, but it breaks it for me.
Well, the good news is, Griff, when 1.0 comes out, you'll be able to make that decision for real. When you make it count,
let's see what happens. And because there are so many things that are broken in the game, and what I mean by broken, I should say they have not been implemented. Right. Like suit. You were mentioning this earlier. You were asking about the suit lockers. Remember yesterday you were asking about, can I use them? Sure, it'd be great to be able to know that when you got into your ship, you could take your Novikov off and it's in there, right? That you could store things, that they're there, that that they're there, right? They don't disappear on you or anything weird like that. And so because those elements aren't there, you can't really step into that next level of immersion just yet. So therefore, we get to throw it in our backpack, right? We get to carry it with us. But I do hope that later on, those type of things will be a reality for us to play with.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You guys done? Serious? You got anything else? Fastcart?
Nope.
We're pushing up on our hour.
It all off my chest.
You got that? Well, it was great. It was great information. It was great information. Speaking of great information, we wanted to once again remind you all that we are just 28 days away now, I think, from Quantum Vegas 2955 in Las Vegas. You guys have heard us talk about this before. It is a community-driven effort partnering with CIG. Cloud Imperium Games to do a community event. We're coming together in Las Vegas, Nevada, here in the United States for a day of a lot of great information, conversation, networking, giveaways, all types of great stuff. There's a bar citizen the day before on July the 11th, but July 12th is the day. Tickets are still available. We want to encourage you to come out. People from Cloud Imperium Games, such as Sandy Roberts, the co-founder of Cloud Imperium Games, Tyler Whitkin, as you guys know, is Xylo. Galactica is going to be there. And Sean Tracy, one of the major developers who's been there since the very beginning, are going to be there along with folks like Star Jump Grim, Nate Ellis from EE Studios, Daniel Raymond from Ray's Guide, Paul Shelley from the Astropub, and SeriousFun and myself from and Fastcart too from Soul Citizens. We're all going to be there. Nick at Night's going to be there from Bar Citizen International, the Poets, content creator, you guys know the Poets. We're all going to be there, and it's going to be a great time. It's going to be hosted by Kim Ellis, in fact, and the Poets, and we're really excited. So we're just a few weeks away from it. We're all looking forward to it, and hopefully check out the website. Go to quantumvegas.space. You can find out information about the event. There's ticket information there, and hopefully we'll see you guys out in Las Vegas, and you will get to join us there. Other than
27 days, so less than 4 weeks.
27 days now. Woo, we're ticking down. Okay. Well, I want to say a special thanks to SeriousFun, who had the topic for this week, and fastcart for joining in with me as well. We want to wish you guys have a great weekend as we're getting ready to go into 4.2, which should be launching next week. It's a Saturday. We're going to put this video out. It'll be out today. So for those of you who are Patreon and YouTube subscribers, you'll get the first shot at this, and you'll get a chance to see it over the weekend. And we're going to say Happy Father's Day.
We want to hear from you in the comments. We want to hear from you in the comments.
Yes, and
what do you think?
Yes, hit the like button. Hit the like button. We got to hit like. We never encourage people to hit the like button. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we got to
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell when you want to hear when we go live.
Absolutely. And for those of you who celebrate Father's Day, happy Father's Day this weekend. And there's no show tomorrow, so we're going to be off for that day. But we'll be back next week. And thank you guys. We know we're a little late on this video for the month of June, but we wanted to make sure we got it out to you all. So thank you once again for your support. And as always, we'll sign off. fastcart.
Peace.
Love.
And soul.
Take care, everybody. See you soon.